We know that Keela has a ton of working parts and nifty features that directly play into your fundraising appeals, communications, reporting, and anything else you might use Keela for. And often, your team is also collaborating on this variety of tasks in order to get the job done. That's why Keela has a built-in project management tool. Here, you can create unique projects, add team members for collaboration, add files to share with your team members, and even assign tasks to make sure that you complete your project successfully. In this brief training video, we'll cover how you can create projects in Keela in order to maximize your productivity and your collaboration. When you first click into the Projects tool, you're going to arrive at the Projects Overview tab. Here, you will see all of your current projects. You can learn some of the overarching details of your project, such as the name, due date, priority, and status. You can even filter for these projects based on this criteria, and you can parse it out even further by searching directly for the accompanying due date, priority, or status of one of the projects that you're looking for. You can also manage your project-related notifications, such as toggling on notifications to be received if you are assigned to a task, if a project has been completed, if you've been added to a task, and so forth. From this Projects Overview tab, you can also change the status of your project. You can mark it as completed or ongoing, and you can also archive and delete your project. Of course, you can always create projects here as well, which we'll get to shortly. But speaking of archiving projects, that's where this little Archive tab comes into play. This is your Archive tab. And this is useful if you ever need to review any archived projects. So maybe it's a project that never got off the ground, or maybe it's something that's going to be temporarily on the back burner. But here, you can view these pre-existing projects that are no longer relevant and don't need to be held here on your Projects Overview tab. There's also some actions that you can take here, such as marking an archived project as complete. You can unarchive the project to have it return back into this Projects Overview tab, and you can also delete it completely. So now that we have a lowdown on these two tabs in your project overview, let's actually go through with creating a project. So let's say we're going to create a project for our end-of-year fundraising appeal, and we're going to have a few members from our team on board. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a project here. Here, you're going to see this little pop-up where you're going to input some of the details about your project. We can start with the name of your project, and of course, all of these details will be held internally, so they won't be visible to the public. In the description, you can input any relevant information about the project purpose, and so that anybody who is a part of this project is able to collaborate it with all the details necessary. So we'll just input a few details here. The due date is when the project must be completed by. So in this case, let's say December 31st, because it's an end-of-year fundraising appeal. And you can even set the exact time as well. So let's do, I guess it would be 11:59. And then you can also set the priority. So this allows you to rank the priority if you have simultaneous projects going on. So this one is going to be high priority because it is concerned with fundraising. And last but not least, we're going to add all of the members who are expected to collaborate on this project. So I'm going to pick my colleague Travis and also my colleague Stefania. Now you've successfully created the bones of your project. Now that your project has been created, you can get familiarized with the two tabs of your project, Tasks and Files. These two tabs are shared with everybody that is involved in the project so that they can access both the tasks and the files for the specific project. But before we go into the nitty-gritty of tasks and files, I wanted to bring your attention to our project overview. The project overview shows the main details that we just set up during the creation of the project. By clicking these three little dots, there's a few different actions that you can take. You can edit the information that's displayed in the project overview. You can mark the project as completed. You can duplicate the project if you want to use this as a baseline for a new project. And you can archive or delete your project. So now that you're familiar with what this structure looks like, let's go ahead and actually create some tasks. Let's say that the first task that we have here is to create a campaign calendar. Here I'm going to put we need the details of our appeal. We're going to set a due date here, which is important so that everybody on the team knows when this needs to be completed by. And I always recommend adding a notification as well. And this way, the people who are involved in this task are able to receive a notification from Keela to remind them that it's due. So let's say we want to do 1 day before it's due. I'm going to mark this as medium priority, but of course you don't always have to indicate a priority if you'd prefer not to. I have the assignee, so that means I myself am responsible, but I also want my colleague Stefania to be involved in this. So I'm going to add them as a follower as well. Once I click save here, you're brought to the specific task. And if you click this back to all tasks, you will see it here as your one task for your project. So we'll just go ahead and add a few more here. We want to create the campaign in Keela. That's pretty self-explanatory. And we'll do that 1 day notification. We'll create a donation form. Let's do that the same day. And we'll do 1 day before. I'm going to assign this entire task to Stefania. 2 people don't need to be working on this. And we'll do one final task here. And this is going to be sending our first appeal communication. So this is how we want to actually reach out to our potential donors and the current donors. And let's say we have that set up for September 3rd. We're planning in advance here. Again, we're going to do that 1 day notification. This one's going to be marked as high, and I'm also going to involve Stefania on this as well. Now, when we get brought to this task, we can actually add chats and comments directly within each individual task. So here I could write to Stefania, make sure you consult our internal style guidelines. And you can even attach files directly within these comments. So let's go ahead and upload an internal style guide here. And once I click send, you'll see the file has been uploaded to the task, and you can also see my comment, which Stefania can reply back to directly within this little live chat thread. Now, that brings us to our second tab here, which is files. Now that I've added a file to our first communication appeal, it's also going to belong here in this second tab for files. So anybody on the project can view and access these files. Now, if you don't want it to be associated to a specific task, you can also upload files directly within this Files tab. And if you realize you don't need a file anymore, you can even delete them. As your team starts moving through these tasks, they can begin to mark things as completed. And by marking it as completed, you will see that this little green check mark is applied, and that's one way to tell that the project has been completed by the team members who have been assigned to it. Now, once you complete your overall project, you'd also want to mark the entire project as completed. So if I go ahead and mark that as completed, you won't see anything right within the project beyond this little status here, but you'll also see this updated on your overarching project's overview. So now that you know how to create a project, it's time to put it to work to help you with your grant management, planning events, managing programs, or any other project you may have.